Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling something that's been a massive headache for AI developers, memory. We're going to look at a potential game changer that could solve one of AI's biggest, most persistent problems.
All right, let's just jump right into a puzzle. We keep building these bigger, more powerful AI models with absolutely massive memory. So why is it that when you give them a lot of information, they seem to get dumber? You know what I mean, right? The longer the chat, the more they start to lose the plot.
Well, there's a name for it. Researchers call it context rot, and it's a huge bottleneck. You see this especially in really complex fields like science or finance, where you need to process a ton of dense information. The model's reasoning just falls apart.
And look, this isn't just some small glitch. We're talking about top-of-the-line models, ones that boast about having these huge context windows of over 200,000 tokens. But the reality? They can start to fail on really tough reasoning tasks after just 16,000 tokens. That's, less than 10% of what they're supposedly capable of?
This chart really tells the whole story. This is a tough benchmark called O-long, and you can see what happens. The model's performance doesn't just dip, it completely falls off a cliff. At about 33,000 tokens, it's down to 30%. And for a slightly harder task, it's basically at zero. The model just cannot hang on to what's important.
So what's the fix? Well, some brilliant folks over at MIT proposed something totally different. Not just a bigger model, but a whole new way of thinking.
Okay, so instead of trying to force the AI to memorize an entire library in one go, this new approach, the Recursive Language Model or RLM, basically gives the AI a library card. It lets it browse the shelves, pick out what it needs, and read one book at a time. It completely changes the game.
And this is the core idea, the big aha moment. The prompt, all that text, isn't just something you stuff into the AI's memory anymore. Nope, it's now an environment the AI can poke, prod, and explore piece by piece.
So how does this actually work? Let's get into the nuts and bolts of it, because it's pretty clever. It's like the AI is having a conversation with its own data.
So here's the flow. The RLM puts all that context, that huge document, into a sort of coding sandbox. Then it just gives the AI the user's question. That's it. From there, the main AI acts like a manager. It writes little bits of code to search or grab chunks of the document. And if it finds a really tricky part, it calls in a specialist, a fresh copy of itself, to analyze just that piece.
This is the perfect analogy, honestly. Think of the RLM as your computer's operating system. The massive prompt is like a giant file on your hard drive. Your CPU, that's the AI, can't possibly load that whole thing into its working memory, its RAM, all at once. So, the RLM intelligently feeds it small, manageable pages of data, exactly when it needs them.
Okay, that all sounds great in theory, but, the proof is in the pudding. Does this thing actually work in the real world? Well, the MIT researchers put it to the test, and yeah, the results are pretty mind-blowing. The numbers are just dramatic. On that same super hard O-long benchmark, they took a smaller, more efficient model and hooked it up to the RLM system. And look at that. It scored a 64. That's more than double the score of the much, much larger standalone model.
Let that sink in for a second. A smarter, cheaper model using this RLM strategy completely crushed a bigger, more expensive one. This is a huge deal. It proves that just throwing more computing power at the problem isn't the only way. It's not about the size of the brain, it's about how you use it.
And it just keeps getting better. They gave it another test, answering really complex questions based on a huge library of documents. The standard big model completely collapsed as they added more documents. But the RLM? Its performance held rock steady. It even hit 100% accuracy when digging through 1,000 documents. That's just incredible.
So what's the big takeaway here? This is way more than just a clever coding trick. This could be a totally new direction for how we build and use AI.
So, let's wrap this up. What do you need to remember? 1. This RLM approach seems to be a real solution for context rot. 2. It could let AI handle almost unlimited amounts of information, and that means more efficient, more reliable AI systems for everyone. But the biggest thing? It shifts our focus from just building bigger models to designing smarter strategies for how they think.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on. For years, the race has all been about building bigger and bigger AI brains. But maybe, just maybe, the real breakthrough isn't a bigger brain at all, but finally teaching these incredibly powerful minds how to think more effectively.